Yeah, so how many people right now have like a tech ed class or have had a tech ed class? Is it called tech ed?
Yeah.
Yeah? Foundations in tech, yeah. So how many people did the, how many people did the bridge build?
It was on
Crane, bridge.
So we didn't actually build anything.
I made a slideshow.
Here's what I would have done. That's terrible, I hate that.
Exactly.
Mine won.
Okay, so back when I was in high school, my freshman or sophomore year of high school, I had to do the bridge. And at first you have to go through like the construction steps where you research and figure out what's the best way to do it, and go from there with your popsicle sticks and your scotch tape. But Heilman decided to put everyone in random groups because it was like one of our first weeks in class and no one knew anyone. So I got put into a group with two of the, how you say, smart kids, where straight A students knew everything there was to know about anything relating to school. And then there's just me, who was barely passing my freshman year of high school. But we were doing that research process, and they kind of stuck together on one computer, and I was next to them on a different computer. And they were looking up like ways to do theirs, and I was kind of trying to think outside the box and try to figure out what ways would work best, structurally wise, how to position each way, the popsicle stick to try to get it to line up perfectly, and I'm trying to think outside of the normal way to do it. And they just basically looked up a picture of a bridge and just was like, all right, let's build it like this. So they went on to do that, and while they're building it, I'm over on my computer like, oh, maybe we should do this, maybe we should do that, maybe if we change this piece over here or tape right here or try to put some more support in the middle, and did not hear a single word that I said. Just wasn't paying attention to me, figured that I knew nothing and what to do, and they could build it better without me. So I kind of just sat there and let them do their own thing. But there was a group next to me who basically was not the, how most people perceive as the smart kids, who kind of slacked off, didn't really care about anything. So they didn't want to do their own research. They just kind of looked around, tried to find out what other people were doing, trying to eavesdrop on conversations to figure out the best way to just throw it together. And since they were directly next to me, and I was just kind of talking very loud to try to get the smart kids to listen to me, they decided to just take all of my ideas and just build a bridge that was my ideas. So it gets to the testing day, and we're sitting up there, and my group's bridge that I had absolutely no say in, they went up and they put the 5-pound weight on, and it collapsed immediately and didn't hold a single thing, and wound up getting a D on the project. But then when the other kids that had my bridge went up, they went up and sat the bridge up, and it held like 200 pounds and got best in class. And I was just kind of sitting there with like a weird look on my face, like, this is what happens when no one listens to you in a group. So I'm sure many of us have been through the same scenario where it could be like a coach, a large family dinner, boyfriend, girlfriend, parents. It could be any scenario where you kind of just feel unheard or not important, where you could be in a large setting and you're trying to say something and no one's listening. I'm sure many of us have been through the same scenarios. And today we're finishing up Afterlife, our Easter series, and Easter is next week. And why is Easter so important?
It's the resurrection of Jesus.
Yes, Jesus resurrected. And Easter's probably what most Christians consider the #1 holiday, is because of the meaning behind Easter and everything that went on in Easter. And there's one person that is not really known by many people. Her name's Mary Magdalene. So she is mentioned a healthy bit in the Bible, in which she is the second most talked about Mary and the second most talked about female in the entire Bible. Now, obviously, the first Mary is Jesus' mom, and outside of Jesus' family, Mary Magdalene is the second most talked about woman in the entire Bible. Now, back in these times, women were kind of perceived as not important, can't be trusted, unreliable, just all around, just no rights at all whatsoever. And to make it even worse was that Mary was a woman back in these days, but she was also very sick and was considered an outcast, which back in those days, when you're an outcast, you kind of get pushed away from everyone and you're outside the town and no one really pays any attention or knows your existence at all. So it's really safe to say that Mary understood the whole idea of not being heard or feeling unimportant. So while she was being an outcast, Jesus had gone to her and healed her, and that is when Mary became one of the most dedicated followers of Christ that there was. And there's the New Testament and Old Testament, and in the New Testament there's 4 Gospels. And in all 4 Gospels, it is said that she was there for when Jesus got put on the cross. In 3 of the 4, it mentioned her being there for his burial, and for all 4 of them, she was there to be the first one to find him in the resurrection. So this is all very important in the timeline and important to her. So she was there for the crucifixion. She was said to be right next to the cross while it was happening and crying and calling out. For the burial, she was right next to it, crying, letting it all out. And for the resurrection, she was there, crying, letting it all out. So it was really dark one day, and she had gone to the tomb where he was buried and found out that the stone had been moved. And she immediately took a look inside, saw that Jesus' body wasn't there, but it was just the clothes that he was buried in. She started immediately thinking that someone had messed with the tomb and trying to figure out what was going on. So she ran to some of the disciples and told them, like, hey guys, like, Jesus is gone. Someone took him. I don't know where he is. Like, what do we do? Like, and then the disciples followed her to the tomb. And when they got there, it was true that his body was gone. So the 2 disciples left and to go tell other people, and she stayed there right next to the tomb. And there's things that had happened while she was standing there, and it was written about in John. Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look inside the tomb and saw 2 angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and one at the other, and the other at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for?" Thinking she was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will go get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned towards him and cried out in Aramaic, Rabbani, which means teacher. Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, for I have yet to ascend to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, "I have seen the Lord," and she told them that he has said these things to her. On the evening of that first day of the week, when the disciples were together with the doors locked for fear of the Jewish leaders, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." So as she's outside the tomb, she looks in and sees the 2 angels. And while she's looking at the angels, Jesus had been behind her and called out to her. And she turned around, and it said she thought he was the gardener because she didn't really believe that it was Jesus, didn't fully recognize it was him. But it was when he called her name is that when she realized that it was Jesus. And this is important for Easter and the resurrection, is because Jesus said he was going to come back to life after 3 days, and he did it. And that proves that love is stronger than anything, and that Jesus' love is stronger than anything on this earth, and that he means what he says, and that he truly, truly, truly is who he says he is. Now, it's also important for Mary, is because she was there to see it. And not only she was there to see it, but she was the only person there to see it. And he made sure that was the case. Because back then, women were unreliable, unsupported, unheard, unimportant. but Jesus made it a point that she was there to witness it and that she was the only one there to see it. So it says that she ran off and she told the other disciples what had happened, that Jesus was alive and that he was going to ascend back up to heaven. But in the process, she realized something that she didn't really quite understand until that point, is that Jesus had chose her to be there, and that she is important, and that she is known, and that she is heard, because in a time where they're unreliable, she was given the most crucial news that there possibly was, and the job to go share it among the rest of the disciples and the rest of the people. So there's a lot of lessons we can take from this, but the main key points of the whole thing is that you are loved, seen, known, and important, and that we can trust these because Jesus said he was going to come back to life, and he did, and that Mary went, and in a time where she was unreliable, went and told people the most reliable news. So whenever we have doubts on if we're heard or seen or loved, we know that it's not true, that Jesus knows us, that he loves us, because he came back from the dead for us. And on Easter, that's what we're celebrating.